Hello, welcome to Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson, and you find us today at the Slovakian Embassy in Paris. We're here to meet Slovakia's Minister for Foreign and European Affairs, Ivan Korcok. Mr. Korcok, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I'll just tell our viewers a bit more about your country and some recent headlines there. Slovakia, a landlocked country in Central Europe, which borders 4 other EU states plus Ukraine. It has a population of around 5.5 million people. And now the current coalition government lineup in Slovakia has been in place since about the end of April. The former administration collapsed amid pressure over its handling of the pandemic, and specifically a secret deal cut by the former Prime Minister Igor Matovic to buy 2 million doses of the Russian COVID vaccine, Sputnik V, a vaccine that has not at this point been approved for use by the European Medicines Agency. Mr. Korcok, that's where I'd like to start, with vaccines, if I may. In the last few days, Slovakia has become the second EU country to administer the Sputnik V vaccine. Given that it doesn't yet have this EMA authorization, is that a risk to human health?
No, it must not be. And certainly the vaccination continues in Slovakia, and I want to stress with the registered vaccines that up until now we've managed to provide basically 34% of our population with the first doses, and 70% of our population received the registered vaccines. The second shot of it will lagging a bit behind, but what matters is that we've overcome the shortage of vaccines at the first place. But now I have to admit that we are approaching a more critical point, meaning that the readiness of our population to get vaccination is going down, unfortunately. So there is a skepsis, and we as a government need to increase the campaign, basically encouraging people to get this, because this is the ticket to freedom, I'd like to say.
Just in terms of the Sputnik vaccine specifically, I mean, it has been controversial. I believe you personally criticised its use just a few months ago. You called it a hybrid war tool. Do you mean a Russian propaganda tool?
Well, I said it at the moment when it was imported to Slovakia, and I used this term of a hybrid instrument, if you want. I'd like to explain that because at that moment, actually, as we speak, even today, Sputnik has not requested a formal registration. I said it has created controversy, a political controversy in Slovakia. Normally, a vaccine should, address the problem with health, but in Slovakia, it caused a huge political problem, and therefore I use this term of hybrid instrument. But now we are providing that. But what matters also a lot is that our people are informed that Sputnik is not a registered vaccine. And as a matter of fact, according to opinion polls, yes, there is a portion of our population which indicated 3-4 months ago that they are only ready to be vaccinated by Sputnik. Today, we see that the number of those who'd like to have Sputnik went down significantly.
And obviously, a large number of Sputnik vaccines purchased by your government. Yeah. I'm just wondering if it will be acquiring more Sputnik V doses in the future.
Yeah, no. We will not, because at this moment we have on storage in Slovakia 200,000 doses, and up until now there were just 5,000 or 6,000 people who indicated they would like to have it. So we'll see, what the consumption will be for Sputnik in Slovakia.
Another big issue for all European states related to the pandemic right now, the issue of travel, the Schengen zone, that's such a cornerstone of the European Union and the European space, trying to get travel up and running again. How urgent is it for you to see travel opened up in the European space again? Or would you urge caution, given all the worry about coronavirus variants particularly?
Well, first of all, I mean, we still have to be cautious. People have been waiting in Slovakia, but across Europe, desperately for this moment where they can finally travel again. In order for this to happen, it is very good that we found a European solution so that we can move at least safely within European Union. Therefore, at the end of June, a European certificate will be launched and provided. But still in Slovakia, I think in France, in other countries as well, we are making clear to our people that they have to be really cautious, because there are these variants. Still, there is a risk. And we remember last summer when we allowed our people to move, and then the next wave came. So we'll see how successful we will be. But cautiousness is still very, very important.
Subject, non-COVID related, still a massive topic for the European Union, irregular migration, arrivals in the first 5 months of this year, about a third higher than in the same period of 2020. The UN Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, is urging EU states to help relocate these people. He says the figures are manageable. Just a few weeks ago, there was a big influx of 1,400 asylum seekers on the tiny Italian island of Lampedusa. The European Commission asking member states right now to help relocate those people all around the bloc, so Italy's not shouldering this responsibility alone. I know that Ireland and Lithuania have made offers. Will Slovakia be joining them?
Well, it'll be difficult. We recognize on the one hand that we need to show solidarity, and therefore we are funding several projects in the northern part of Africa together with other Visegrad member states. But two, I want to say that this issue has become in Slovakia, in Europe, just 3-4 years ago, very divisive. Unfortunately, there was an attempt to establish mandatory quota by which, basically countries would be forced to relocate. It didn't work. It caused huge tensions politically.
And Slovakia was one of the states that refused to take part in the relocations.
We maintain our position that in the mid-term and long-term perspective, the mandatory quota will not help because they still create or represent a pull factor by which migrants are attracted to.
But just in terms of this specific case, for example, that 1,400 people who are in Europe now, Lampedusa, a tiny place as we know. Lithuania, for example, just about as wealthy as Slovakia in terms of GDP per capita. It's a smaller country. It's taking 10 people. Is 10 people doable, for example?
I fully understand. Nevertheless, realistically, we are not in a position right now to say that we will relocate, because that's simply a consensus within the country. I, for example, am the one who says that we should show solidarity. Nevertheless, we are not yet there to say that we would relocate, and instead we are providing or offering other forms of solidarity. But I visited myself a refugee camp in a downtown of Athens, and I do recognize that this is a big burden on those countries which are hosting those refugees. But let us look at it. And I'm the one who says that solidarity should be proven.
Looking at a foreign policy matter now, Ukraine, Slovakia, as I said, one of the EU states that has a border with Ukraine. Now, there's been considerable concern in the EU recently about the buildup of Russian military forces on their border with Ukraine. Ukraine's president said that he had been hoping for support from Joe Biden, who's in Europe right now, but that President Biden hasn't put pressure on Russia as he'd hoped by calling for the cancellation of this Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. I'm just interested in your position on Nord Stream 2, whether that should go ahead.
Well, first, our position on Ukraine. Slovakia has been a clear and staunch supporter of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We do not accept the annexation of Crimea, and of course we call for a diplomatic solution of the conflict in the east at Donbas in Ukraine. It's our direct neighbor, Ukraine, as a matter of fact, and it is unacceptable that it can happen that a piece of territory was basically occupied by other country. And Nord Stream 2, we too have a similar position, saying that this project does not increase the European energy security. It does not provide for more alternatives when it comes to transit routes. So we've been, so to say, opposing that. As a matter of fact, and I visited St. Petersburg last week when we had a negotiations with Gazprom, we have to be ready for the moment that this will be finished. This is reality, and this is for Slovakia very important point, because we are one of the major transit countries for the gas that is delivered from Russia via Ukraine to Western Europe. And therefore we say, even if Nord Stream 2 is up and running, it's in operation, a sufficient amount of gas needs to be transited through Ukraine. That's the Slovak interest as well.
On a related issue, Ukraine very keen to join NATO as a matter of urgency. As a fellow NATO member, does Slovakia support that?
I mean, I keep on receiving those questions. First, Ukraine needs to focus on both political transformation, successful transformation, which I think is underway, very good, on transformation of its armed forces. We say in Slovakia that in case of Ukraine and any other country in the European Union, in 1989, basically a paradigm was overcome that somebody else has prevented those countries from making a choice where they want to belong. And this must be applied also to Ukraine. So it's an issue between Ukraine and NATO, and within NATO consensus has to be found. But we are supporting, once again, the sovereignty and the Ukrainians' choice, but there has to be consensus within NATO, which is not the case at this moment.
And concretely, would you like to see Ukraine as a NATO member?
This is, I mean, would you like? Ukraine is not preventing from becoming a member, but as it was the case for Slovakia 14, 15 years ago, there has to be consensus within NATO. And it would not help the Ukrainian case if you would say that, okay, tomorrow Ukraine has to become a member of NATO. We are not there.
And just to round off, you were until quite recently Slovakia's ambassador to the United States, Joe Biden in Europe right now as this interview goes to air. Just wondering, realistically, what difference will it make to Europe to have Joe Biden in the White House rather than Donald Trump?
We've experienced back then in previous administration situation where there was a hostile relationship on the side of the administration, where the EU was openly named, as an enemy of the United States. That was very difficult for me to hear. I didn't accept that because I say the closest partner in the world when it comes to democracies and to what I call the West are United States and European Union. And therefore, my hope is that under administration of President Biden, we will improve exactly this part of transatlantic relations, the track between United States and European Union. And I have my expectations from the visit of President Biden.
Ivan Korcok, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to you for watching France 24 as well. Do stay tuned, more Talking Europe coming up in a couple of minutes.